Hi there, it's Florence here and I am back again today to film another episode of my knitting video podcast. The way these videos work is I'm basically going to show you everything that I have finished knitting recently, everything that I currently have in progress, and then I will also show any new yarn that I've picked up, which in this episode in particular there is a lot of. I'll get to that later though. Firstly, I will mention what I am wearing as usual. This is a jumper that I knitted a few months ago. It didn't follow any particular pattern, I just sort of improvised it as I went along, and I did want to make a pattern for it. I never ended up starting the test knit because I just wasn't quite happy with it. So I will be knitting another one of these and seeing if I can get it exactly how I want it, and then I will start a test knit for it, I suppose. The yarn for this jumper I really love. This is knitted in one strand of Woolia from garn. This is a merino wool and it is non-superwash, I think. It has a very dry texture that's kind of similar to the, what's it called? The Nora Madara Gilead, or a little bit like the Knitting for Olive heavy merino, but it's less dense than that. It's really thick. It's definitely a proper Aran weight, I would say, as opposed to a worsted weight, and yet the yardage is so much. I want to say it's maybe like 150 meters per 50 grams, way more than you'd expect for a yarn that thick. So this is a really affordable project. The yarn is actually available from my favourite yarn shop for I think £5.50 per ball. So if you're looking for a budget jumper, I would really recommend this yarn. One thing to note about it is that it definitely does pill quite a bit. I think that's just always going to be the case with a softer merino wool, and so it doesn't particularly bother me. If I feel like it's getting too pilled, I'll just, shape the jumper before I wear it out. It's kind of a trade-off, right? Like if you're going to knit something with very soft yarn, you sort of have to expect it to pill. I overall love it, and I was in a yarn shop yesterday and I think I may have convinced somebody to buy some, so yes, I hope they enjoy it as much as I did. I will jump straight in and talk about the big finished object. This is the yellow jumper that I showed in the last episode. It's been a really long time since the last episode actually, and that is because since the last episode I have moved across the country and started a new full-time job, so I have been very busy getting everything set up, trying to get utilities sorted and, settling into this new job, and so I haven't been knitting as much as I'd have liked to. I still have quite a lot to show just because it has been a long time since the last episode, but this was only finished a couple of weeks ago, and the last episode I filmed, I don't know, over a month ago, and I was working on this project all the way back then as well. So, I have spoken a lot lately about how badly I want a yellow jumper. I made an Instagram story a few months back where I showed some different yellow yarn and people voted on which one they thought I should use. And then I ended up buying this, which was not any of the ones on that story. This is sandnes garn gynt. I will put the colour number here because I don't know it off the top of my head, and sandnes garn doesn't normally put colour names on their balls of yarn. I think some of their yarn does have colour names, but it's never on the packaging. In terms of the pattern I followed for this, it's sort of half improvised and half done to a pattern. I based this off the Chestnut Sweater by Petite Knit, just because it's a plain oversized jumper which is knitted in the gynt, so I figured the gauge would work. In particular, because this colour is definitely a little bit outside my comfort zone, I wanted a design that was really simple, and so this seemed to fit that requirement quite well. However, I didn't follow the pattern very closely. Essentially, I used the pattern for the number of stitches around the bust, which again is the matter of a few seconds of calculation if you don't have a pattern. I also used it for figuring out the armhole depth, because that's one of the things that I struggle with the most when I'm figuring out how to knit things sort of freehand, and so following the Chestnut Sweater pattern for that was really helpful. What I will say is that this jumper is really big. It is very oversized, and this is the smallest size that the pattern comes in. This is the extra small, I think. Some things that I did that do not match the original pattern. Firstly, the shoulder construction. I'm not sure if you can see, but this is a shoulder construction that's sort of similar to the one on the sweater number 11, one of my favourite things knitwear, where the back panel is shaped using increases instead of short rows. I really love how this looks. A bunch of patterns use this sort of technique, and it gives you this sort of line of stitches along the join between the front and back panel, and I think it looks really pretty. I also did the collar. I think the original Chestnut Sweater is like a roll neck, kind of similar to this one that I'm wearing. I didn't want that for this jumper in particular. To be honest, the pig end, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent and talk about the yarn. It's a great yarn. It holds up really well, it barely pills, and like I said, there's that trade-off between how well it holds up and how soft it is. This holds up really well and it's not super soft. I wouldn't say it's a scratchy yarn by any means. It doesn't have those long scratchy fibres you get on some yarns, but if you are sensitive to wool, this is probably not a yarn you're going to particularly enjoy. I don't find that it bothers me, but I think a roll neck in that yarn might be pushing it a little bit. So I just did this folded collar. This collar uses a technique that it comes up in a lot of patterns, but is definitely in the petite knit Moby sweater. Instead of doing a purl round halfway up the collar to give that folded edge, it has sort of, I think, 3 rows of double knitting. So you do 2 rows just of the stitches on the outside and then 1 row on the inside, and that means that it sort of wants to fold over. Oh, I think Petite Knit has it in some of her hat patterns as well. I haven't bought them, but I think it's in the, what's the new hat called? Weekend hat? The ribbed hat that was released fairly recently. Overall, I'm super happy with this. It was quite an affordable project. This yarn cost me under £50, which I know sounds like a lot of money, but for a woolen jumper, for the materials required for a jumper this oversized, is quite cheap, I would say. And the colour is really fun. I only just got around to weaving the ends in, so I haven't worn it much so far. We'll see how much I reach for it with this colour. I really can't predict whether this is going to be my new favourite jumper that I wear all the time, or something that I end up giving away. I'm hoping the former. Okay, on to the next thing. So this next finished object was not even started in the last video. To be honest, I only spent a couple of days knitting it, so it wasn't on the needle for very long at all. This is the Oslo hat by Petite Knit, and I know this is a very sort of basic thing to show in one of these knitting podcasts. I feel like every single knitting podcaster has knitted one of these. I have followed this pattern a couple of times. I think I do know it by heart. But the way that I'm justifying it is I've actually never knitted myself a hat. In quite a few years of knitting, I've never made myself one, probably because I don't wear hats very often, but I kind of felt like I should, and I wanted to make a hat that felt really special, and this is what I ended up making. I've made this pattern before for my boyfriend and he really likes it, so I ended up taking him to the yarn shop a few weeks ago and we each picked out yarn for one of these hats. I've been teaching him to knit on his one, and then I knitted this one alongside him. I've finished, he hasn't. I'm knitting a little bit of his to help him out. 1 minute, I'll get that one actually so I can show you that one too. Okay, so this is the hat that both he and I have been working on. This one is knitted in double Sunday from Sandnes garn again. I have knitted him this hat before also using double Sunday, and he finds it not scratchy at all, even though he is fairly sensitive to wool, so he picked the same yarn out again. This time the colour is 6032, I don't know what that is in colour names, sorry. This is a non-superwash merino wool that is super soft. If you are worried about wool feeling too woolly, I really strongly recommend this one. It is a very round, smooth wool, so it has beautiful stitch definition. I think it looks really pretty with cables and stuff, but I also just think it gives really lovely, even looking stockinette, and it works beautifully for this hat. I'm actually not sure which version of the Oslo hat pattern I have. There's one called the Oslo hat and then one called Oslo hat mohair edition, and it's strange because the two are actually really similar in gauge. I have knitted this hat both with fingering weight plus mohair and with DK, just using one of the two patterns, and I've never had any problems. It's knitted on 3.5mm needles, by the way. So yes, this one is non-superwash merino, double Sunday. I love this yarn, my boyfriend really likes this yarn. And then for mine, I actually used the superwash yarn, which is quite unusual. This is the Fibre Co. Amble. I think it's a hand-dyed. I know very little about the Fibre Co. It's not within my usual comfort zone when it comes to yarn, but I think it's a sock yarn. It's mostly merino, it has a little bit of alpaca, and it's superwash. This colour I think is called Chalk Cliffs. The colour is the reason I got it. I actually picked out the mohair first. So the mohair that I use for this is the Isager silk mohair, and I think it's in the colour 0. E0 and 0 are different colours. E0 is, I think it's the undyed one, and it's a cream, whereas 0 is a much more greyish or like bluish cream colour, like a grey off-white. I don't know how to describe. but I really like the colour of that zero mohair in particular, and so I wanted a cream fingering weight yarn to hold with it that also had that cool greyish undertone. This looks super similar to, well, a lot of knitwear I already have actually. It's very similar in colour to Knitting for Olive, Marzipan, I would say. That's also the sort of greyish colour. Or Drops Flora in the colour White Fog. So if you like those sorts of colours, I do recommend this one. The main reason I don't use superwash yarn is that I don't like how it feels, but I find that I don't notice it so much when I'm holding it with mohair, so it wasn't such an issue. I'll put it on so you can see. So another very mysterious thing about this pattern is that it's definitely one of Petite Knit's older patterns. And when the pattern was released, I think it was particularly trendy to have a lot of space in the top of your hat. So it's sort of like baggy here. And I feel like that, I'm going to make some statements here which are definitely opinion, but for me I don't like that look very much. I feel like it's a little bit dated, and I think Petite Knit might do as well, at least for this particular style of hat, because she actually went back and rephotographed this hat with one that is much more fitted, and those pictures are now also on the pattern page. So it makes me wonder whether the measurements on the pattern for how long you knit the hat before you start decreasing are including or excluding the extra that you would need to make it baggy. I don't know. I guess that was a part of the original pattern. I don't know if it was changed when she rephotographed the hat. Who knows? But I basically don't follow the measurements when it comes to how long you knit before decreasing or whatever. I just look at the hat and try it on as I go, and as a result I think I like how it looks. Then again, she's also released a lot more patterns lately which do have rim in the top, so I guess there's a pattern there for you, whatever type of hat you prefer. I made really no modifications to this other than I just did the decreases slightly differently. I don't remember what's written in the pattern. I just did like a knit two together and slip step knit for the decreases on the top of the hat. This hat's still a little bit damp because this brim part of it is double layered, or this part that's folded up is double layered. So you end up with 3 layers in total around this bottom part of the hat, which is very cozy, but kind of a pain to block because it's just so thick. It's a really great easy pattern. I think Petite Knit has mentioned that this is the pattern that she gives to her friends when they want to learn to knit. I don't know if I'm imagining her posting this, but I swear she said it. That because the pattern begins with like a 20cm stockinette tube, they can get really used to just knitting before they have to do anything else. It's a really good basic pattern. I like it a lot. Okay, I'll do the socks before I move on to the next garment. I only have one sock, and I really thought that this sock would be part of a finished pair when I filmed the last episode, like over a month ago. I have been wanting to make a chunky version of the Mountain Walk socks, which is a sock pattern that I released maybe in January, around then. I ended up buying some of this yarn on sale at my local yarn shop in Oxford. This is Sandnes Garn Smart, I think, and it's a DK weight yarn, but it does have nylon in it, which is what I like for a DK weight sock. The reason why I haven't been knitting on this was because I bought 2 balls of this yarn, and this yarn has, I think, 100 meters per 50 gram ball. So in the shop, I foolishly decided that this yarn in the bargain bin, 2 balls of it would be enough. Once I realised it probably wouldn't, I really started worrying because it was in the bargain bin because they don't sell it anymore, and it's actually super hard to find in the UK. So I was really not feeling super enthusiastic about working on these socks because I figured I probably couldn't finish them and I'd have to, I don't know, rip it all out and start over or something. However, I sat there all night and I pulled out this abandoned project and just decided to see how far the 1 ball of yarn got me, and I did manage to finish the first sock. Okay, apparently I'm keeping a scrap this big in case I need it for the second sock, but this is how much I have left after knitting the first sock. So I now have the very daunting task of knitting the second sock while knowing that it's going to be extremely tight whether I finish or not. You know, the yardage can vary a little bit between balls. I'm hoping that this one is extra long because I might end up in trouble otherwise, but I'm sure I'm going to manage to get the second sock done as well. And now I have this first one done, I'm pretty happy with it. I can write the pattern up and I'll be doing a call for testers very soon. These were such a quick knit. The other night I sat down after work, after dinner, probably like 8:30 p.m, and I had just finished the gusset decreases and I just finished the sock in one sitting. You can knit one of these in a day pretty easily, I would say. And I just find that DK weight socks are super cozy for winter. They're something I reach for a lot. They're great if you're trying to break in Doc Martens, for those of you who try to do that sort of thing. I will come up and show you. It has this sort of ribbed cable pattern. These cables are not real cables, they're all mock cables, which I like because you don't have to sort of interrupt your flow when you're knitting to drop stitches and switch them around. It's very quick and easy to do. So yes, I should probably cast on that second sock. I'm just still nervous about it. I will show my other work in progress right now. Here it is. So I got this yarn quite a while ago. This is from Knitting for Olive. This is the heavy merino in the colour fennel seed and also the soft silk mohair in the colour fennel seed. I have used this colour before. I knitted the camisole number 5, I think, by My Favourite Things Knitwear, right when the pattern released, in the fingering weight merino from Knitting for Olive in this colour. And this was long before I started this channel, but I have worn that top so much. And I really, really love that colour, even probably a year and a half, 2 years on. So I've been really wanting to knit a full garment in it, and I picked this up when Knitting for Olive were doing one of their charity sales. Like, the yarn isn't discounted, but the money spent on their website becomes a massive donation to the Danish Red Cross. They seem to do it approximately yearly. I don't think it's a regular thing. It's more based on, is there something happening in the world right now that makes them want to give a donation, I guess. But I've bought from them when they've done it like 3 times now, I think. So I am working on this cardigan. It is in broken rib and it is a raglan. I feel like I haven't knitted a raglan in a while, so this is quite nice to go back to. I really like how raglan increases look in this sort of broken rib, and I really like this colour. I have a little sketch in my diary of how it's going to look actually. I'll see if I can pull it out. Don't know if there are any other planner girlies watching, but this is the sketch that I did. So double knitting down the front. I might do double knitting for the collar, we'll see, I'm not sure about that. And other than that, it's just a very plain broken rib cardigan. The neckline shaping has been causing me some pain with this one. I think I've knitted it 4 times, and the way that I ended up knitting it was the way that I knitted it the first time. Like, I knitted it, ripped it out, and changed it, and ripped it out, and changed it, and then decided that I liked the original way the most and had to do it again. So this has been knitted like 4 times now. I'm finally happy with it and continuing to work my way through the yoke, and it just feels really good to knit. Like, something about this sort of raglan project is really nostalgic to me. It reminds me of all of my early knitting that I did, which was a lot of raglan jumpers mostly, and I think it's going to be pretty cute. That colour is just so wearable. It's a colour that you can wear with blue jeans or white jeans, which I generally wear one of those. I think it would also work with black trousers. It's a great colour. It's a really interesting warm green that I haven't really seen anywhere else. I like it a lot more than Dusty Artichoke, I think it's called, which is the most popular colour that Knitting for Olive do. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it in terms of the project that I'm actively working on right now. And so I'm going to move on to show you the yarn that I've got recently. There is a lot of yarn that I've picked up recently. Some of it is sponsored, so it was gifted to me. I will make it clear when I show yarn that was gifted to me. A lot of it I also bought with my own money. I guess I'll start off with this one because I bought this before the last episode actually, but I got it delivered to my parents' house and I was here, and so I only just got it because they just brought it to me. This yarn I have been trying to get my hands on for I think over a year. This is Nora Madara and the colour is, I think, number 1. It's called Sake. And it is 60% wool, 30% silk and 10% alpaca. 100 grams is 200 meters and it will knit to roughly a 16 stitch gauge. I don't know if you can see all of the colour in this. It's one of these beautiful yarns Nora do that are great for people who like really neutral colours but want a little bit of something in their stockinette. This yarn is beautiful. It has been out of stock for a really long time, basically everywhere in the UK, I think pretty much since it released. And my lovely friend Valentina, who has a yarn shop called My Ivory Room, which I will speak much more about in a little bit because I went on a trip there yesterday and bought a bunch of stuff that I will show. She started stocking this, and so I bought it right away. This is definitely a pricier yarn. It generally costs somewhere around £20 per hank. I bought 5, And for me, that felt like a really significant yarn purchase. Like, I don't feel like I generally spend quite that much on a jumper. I could probably have squeezed a garment out of 4, but when the yarn is this special, I really didn't want to cut corners just because I was running out, and so I was like, let's actually buy definitely enough for the project. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I just didn't want it to go out of stock for another year because I really regretted not buying it a year ago. And so I have it, and it's just sitting here waiting for me to come up with an idea that would really suit it. I think it would look so beautiful in a really plain garment because the yarn does the talking, you know? Okay, so I guess now I will take a minute to talk about the yarn that I bought from my Ivory Room yesterday. I went to London just to go to this yarn shop. It's actually a bit of a trek to get to London from Oxford. I ordered this before I went out there for collection. And yes, that last yarn I showed, the Madara, I bought with my own money. This I also bought with my own money. So the reason I got this, I don't desperately need more yarn. However, my boyfriend asked me to knit him a jumper. See, this is the thing, right? Like, the way I show my love is through knitted items, and so I give him knitted things. And I don't think he's like that enthusiastic about them. Like, he doesn't really wear jumpers. He does wear the hat that I knitted him, but he's never really showed enthusiasm for me knitting him a jumper before. But he has this quarter zip he got from a Cambridge punting society that he wears all the time, and he goes on about how much he loves it. And I knitted him the petite knit zipper sweater man a couple of years ago, and that is very nice, but it's very chunky and he struggles to wear it because it is so warm and so thick. So I mentioned recently that Petite Knits released a pattern for a zipper sweater man light. I'm realising now that this is a very Petite Knit heavy episode. I'm sorry about that. And the other day he was just like, Florence, when are you going to knit me that quarter zip that you mentioned? And I felt so touched because someone wants one of my knits. Like, I know a lot of people would want a knit jumper, but my boyfriend wanting one is a rare occurrence. So we had a look through the hashtag, he looked at the colours that he liked, he sent me a picture of one that someone had knitted that was a light grey, and then that same day or the next day, Valentina posted on her Instagram story that she had some of this BC garn loch lomond on sale. It is a DK weight, it looks a little thinner, I might hold some Isager alpaca one or something with it, in a light grey colour, which is perfect, and it was 15% off. These are 50 grams each and 150 metres. So it's quite a lot of yardage for a DK, I think. Maybe it's more of a sport weight. But it's very pretty. It has a little bit of sort of colour variation to it. And I bought 10 of these. I don't know. This is the thing about knitting stuff for men. They're just often built a little bit differently to me. And I feel very confident buying yarn that will be the right amount to knit a jumper at a certain gauge for myself. I have no clue when it comes to a man. My boyfriend is the same height as me, but he still generally will want a jumper that's a longer length and has longer sleeves. I mean, he's a couple of inches taller than me, but there's not a lot in it. And so I just played it safe and got what the pattern wanted for a size medium, which was 10 of these, which was also all that my Ivory Room had in stock, so it felt like fate. And so I ordered them and I asked if I could go collect them, and I went to collect them yesterday. But like, I don't just go to my Ivory Room all the way in London and not get anything. It's far too exciting an experience. I'll put some footage in here if anyone's curious about this shop. I speak about it quite often on my channel, and I feel like it's a little bit of a hidden treasure in London because it doesn't have a storefront. So you have to know where it is to find it and like ring the bell and be let in. And then there's just this upstairs room with all this amazing yarn in it. And in particular, she stocks a lot of yarn that I haven't seen anywhere else in the UK, brands that are a little bit harder to find. And so I did get some stuff from a couple of these brands. This yarn that I'm about to show was sponsored, gifted to me, so bear that in mind. I guess I'll show this one first. So this is from Mohair by Canard. My Ivory Room stocks quite a lot of different yarn from Mohair by Canard. This is the 1-ply, I think. 1-ply mohair. It's 65% mohair and 35% merino. This is very soft. It definitely has a little bit of that mohair feeling. I know some people are particularly sensitive to mohair, and I wouldn't recommend this if that's the case for you, but if you're unsure, it's a lot softer than I was expecting given that it is mohair. Now I did buy this yarn with a specific project in mind. I already had some yarn, which I will show you, and this is not sponsored. I bought this from the Oxford yarn store with my own money. This is Isager Tweed. I think it's called Isager Tweed. The colour's walnut, and this is Isager Alpaca 1. The colour of the Alpaca 1 is E4S. So I have this wrap cardigan that I made to wear to a May ball in Cambridge. It's a little bit similar to the Robinson wrap cardigan that I released a pattern for a year or so ago, but it is a bit more oversized, the gauge is slightly different, and the Robinson wrap is a raglan, whereas the May ball wrap is more of a drop shoulder style. So they are quite different, and I've been wearing the May ball wrap a lot lately, and I thought that it might be nice to try and make it into a pattern. However, because I knitted it a long time ago and I don't really remember what I did, I was going to have to knit another. So I got these to make one. I wanted it to be mohair free. I don't mean mohair free, I mean not fluffy, so not like lace weight silk mohair. There's actually a lot of mohair in this, as I believe the Isager Tweed has quite a lot of mohair in, and obviously I'm going to be holding this with it too. So I originally just got the Tweed and the Alpaca 1 because I was thinking, you know, fingering weight plus lace weight, that will knit up nicely on 4.5mm needles at the sort of DK. Actually, this is definitely a thinner fingering weight and also a thinner lace weight, and so it just wasn't looking quite right. And so I needed to get something else to hold with it, and I think that this mohair by Canard is perfect. It's actually a much better match, I think, for the Isager Tweed than this one is. But my plan is to hold all three together, so I make something that has a lot of texture to it and a lot of different fibres in it, but it isn't fluffy. I'm really excited about this. I've been enjoying this dark coloured jumper, and so I think a dark coloured wrap cardigan would be really nice to have, and hopefully I will be able to write up a pattern for this cardigan at some point. And then the other thing I got was a full sweater quantity, and this again was sponsored. I feel like this colour is not going to show up on camera. This, I think Valentina said it's called Rose Grey. It's another one where it doesn't say the colour name on the packaging. This is 106, the colour, and then the mohair is 104. They are pretty much a perfect match for each other. It is somewhere between like a grey and a pinky lilac colour, which isn't a colour that I wear. Like, I never really knit anything in pink, and so it's a little bit outside my comfort zone, but only like this much outside my comfort zone because it is barely pink. I was just so torn between all the beiges, but I had something like that already, and so I ended up going for this. It's a little bit different to what I already have. I got a full sweater quantity of these, and I'm going to be honest, I don't particularly have anything in mind. I just had gone on with the way to the shop and felt like it would be nice to pick up some yarn that I don't really see anywhere else. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned, this is called Pirolana, and it's 50% alpaca and 50% merino. Just says 50% wool, 50% alpaca. And then this is a regular silk mohair. The mohair feels pretty soft. I will, I guess, describe more how it compares to other mohairs that I've tried once I have actually knitted it up. But I'm really excited about this. The colour feels so special. It is really beautiful. This is really soft. It's just a DK weight, so it's super versatile. I'm sometimes a little bit sensitive to alpaca, but I don't get any of that alpaca irritation from this yarn in particular at all. Oh, I guess the other thing I got from my Ivory Room, and again, this is also sponsored, I got a new cable for my needles. I've never broken anything from my needle set. I use a set from CKnit KA. It's really great. The only thing is, I'm just like constantly finding that the cords that I use the most disappear. Like, I don't tend to have a lot of things on the go at once, so I can't think what project it would be in. So I had to buy another, and I've bought more of this one before as well. This is the M2, which is the medium joint size. These needles have different size joints for the smallest sizes, the middle sizes, and the large sizes. This is the middle one, which I think is everything from a 3.5mm to a 5mm needle. I find I use that a lot, and it's a 75cm cord. I don't know if that includes the length of the needles or not, but I figured it's a good one for making jumpers probably. Okay, so that was my trip to my Ivory Room yesterday. I hope you like my reusable bag. I love this one. It's from Merino. And I will go onto the yarn that I have bought lately in Oxford, because I have just moved to a city with not one, but two lovely local yarn shops, And Cambridge kind of lacked a lovely local yarn shop, so I've been a bit overwhelmed by the ability to go in my lunch break to a yarn shop. I have to adapt to this. I went to the Woolhound. This is a really small shop in the Covered Market, and it's right in the middle of Oxford. The other yarn shop is a bit of a track up north, I guess. It's maybe 20 minutes walk from the city centre. So if you are in Oxford city centre and don't feel like an excursion, the Woolhound is the one to go to. I will talk more about why it might be worth the excursion to the other shop in a minute, but I really like the Woolhound. It's a very small shop, and it seems to have quite a lot of sort of acrylic yarn, but it also has a lot of really nice wool. They have a lot of kremke and also a lot of Erica Knight, I think. There's this, it's called something like local wool or something. It's really nice, and it comes in all these beautiful muted colours, and every time I go in I'm super tempted by it. But they don't have it in stock in the colour I want, so maybe at some point in the future. But I went into the Woolhound and I bought this boucle. This is from Kremke, and it is the alpaca boucle superfine. 89% alpaca and 11% polyamide. I just bought this one hank because I thought I'd make like a double thickness headband or something for the winter. I wear headbands more than hats, so I feel like that would be quite useful to me. This is 50 grams and 250 meters, and it's one of those yarns that kind of fascinates me because it claims it's an 18 stitch gauge on 4.5mm needles, and this is thin. Like, I think boucle just always surprises me because it needs to be knitted up on a much larger needle than I would expect. But yeah, 250 meters of worsted weight yarn, supposedly. We'll see. I'll probably hold it double or with something else, and I just want to make a headband for once the weather actually gets cold enough for me to wear cute knit accessories. And then I went on this trip to the Oxford Yarn Store. The Oxford Yarn Store is this one in North Oxford that's worth a little bit of a trek. It has, in particular, a really great selection of sandnes garn and isager. It's on a little street called North Parade Avenue, and that street is just the cutest thing. It's a really long way, like almost an hour's walk from my apartment, and I will still walk it anyway because it's so good. There's a bakery directly opposite the yarn shop that makes amazing cakes. Like, they have the bakery on that street and then a little cafe next door where you can buy coffee and the cakes that they've just baked. They do cakes, donuts, cardamom buns, all kinds of things. It's so cute. And then the yarn shop is excellent. It just has a really great selection. And they in particular have a really, really good selection of isager. Like, they seem to have pretty much everything. So I decided that what might be fun is, for the second version of this jumper that I knitted up, I wanted to make another one so that I can maybe write it up into a pattern that I'm really happy with. I wanted to do one that's a gradient. And part of this was motivated by the fact that I really wanted to go into the shop and look at all of the different colours of isager and pick out a bunch of them. But what I basically ended up doing was buying a sweater quantity where each ball of yarn is different, and I'm just going to play around with it and see what happens. Maybe hold 3 strands together. So I'm just going to go through all of the yarn that I bought, partly as a record for myself because I'm going to lose track of what's what while I'm working on this. Isager Spinny, the colour is 23S. This is 100% wool, 50 grams is 300 meters. It's a lace weight, I suppose, like a thicker lace weight. This is Isager Tvinny. This is 255 meters per 50 grams, 100% wool. It's probably still a thicker lace weight or like a very light fingering weight, something like that. Colour of this one is 13, I think it says 13S. All the colour numbers are handwritten, which is fun to navigate. Next one, this is another Tvinny. This one is colour 6S. I love this one. It's like that creamy beige I really enjoy. And Isager Silk Mohair. This is probably my favourite silk mohair, although the colour selection isn't so great compared to knitting for Olive. This is 25 grams and 212 meters, and a standard 75% mohair and 25% silk. The colour of this one is 47. It's a really dark, it's not black, it's like a greeny blue petrol colour. Isager Alpaca 1, this is 100% alpaca, lace weight. This is great if you want a cheap mohair alternative, 400 meters per 50 grams. The colour of this one is E2S. I've knitted a lot in this colour of this yarn in the past. Isager Highland Wool. This is 50 grams and 275 meters, and this is a light fingering weight maybe. Colour is called moss. Another silk mohair, this is in colour 3S. And then this green one is in the colour 68. This is a really dark green alpaca one. The colour is called forest. So some of them have names and some have numbers. This is a confusing system. Is this the last one? This is another alpaca one, this time in the colour thyme. And I think that's it. When I was going through all of these, it felt a bit ridiculous, like I spent an obscene amount of money. And obviously isager isn't cheap, but this isn't really more expensive than buying one sweater quantity of a single colour. It's just that, you know, I got 10 different balls of yarn instead. I'm really excited to work on this. I'm a little bit nervous because I feel like I'm going to stress too much over exactly what colour I'm changing when, and it will probably turn out better if I just relax and don't backtrack. If I feel like it's not looking good, just plow on. I think that's the move, but it's definitely a little bit of a nerve-wracking project to cast on. It's also going to be fun seeing how the gauge works out when I have so many different hanks and balls of different types of yarn, all of which are slightly different thicknesses. I say that everything here is somewhere between a lace weight and a light fingering weight, so hopefully they all work out well together. And yeah, I didn't actually mention before, I had one ball of mohair left over from my Oslo hat. It only took one ball of mohair when I thought it would take two, so I will throw that into this project as well, and that should be enough yarn for the full jumper, with quite a bit to spare. Okay, so that's it for today. I promise I don't obtain this much yarn in every episode. This is sort of a one-off since I have moved to a new city with new yarn shops, and I did go on a nice trip to London to a yarn shop that I don't get to visit very often but love a lot. But hopefully next episode I'll be able to show you a lot that I've knitted with all of this new stuff, so that's kind of exciting. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll be back with another one soon. Goodbye.